Welcome to Lee Kiao Jung channel. If this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to support me in creating more meaningful videos.
Today we continue to follow the journey of Sunlen, a single mother who works as a hired laborer simply to earn enough money to support herself and her young daughter through each uncertain day. In the vast mountains of northwest Vietnam, where layers of mist drift slowly between endless ridges and purple wildflowers sway gently in the highland wind, Sunlen moves quietly through the landscape, almost unnoticed, yet deeply bound to the land that shapes her fate. Her life mirrors those wildflowers. They grow without being planted, survive without protection, endure cold rain, burning sun, and relentless wind. Still, they rise from the soil, stretching toward the light, asking only for the chance to exist. Sunlen lives withdrawn, far from noise, gossip, and judgment. She avoids crowded paths and chooses silence over explanation. Her suffering is never displayed. Her strength is never announced. Each day she continues with tired legs, aching shoulders, and a heart trained to endure. Before the sun climbs above the peaks, she leaves the fragile shelter that serves as home for mother and child. The air is cold, the ground damp, birds calling faintly through the forest. On her back is an old woven basket, its straps worn thin by years of use. In her hands, a farming hoe, its handle smoothed by countless days of labor. In her heart, the image of her daughter, still asleep beneath a thin blanket, waiting for her mother to return with food and reassurance. Every morning, Sunlen joins other women from the village and walks into the fields and hillsides to dig arrowroot roots, hidden deep beneath the earth. The work is harsh. The soil is dense and stubborn. Roots twist below the surface, resisting every strike. Each swing of the hoe sends vibrations through her arms into her shoulders and spine. Her hands, once soft, are now rough, cracked, and scarred. Mud stains her skin. Old wounds barely heal before new cuts appear. Pain becomes familiar. Fatigue becomes routine. Sweat darkens her clothes. Her breathing grows heavier as the sun climbs higher, pressing heat onto her body without mercy. Yet, Sunlen does not stop. Every strike into the soil is more than labor. It is survival. She digs for rice. She digs for vegetables. She digs for the small wages that allow her daughter to attend school, to learn letters and numbers, to sit at a desk instead of standing hungry in the fields. Around her, the women work in silence, bending low, lifting arrowroot from the soil, shaking away clinging dirt. There is no laughter, no complaint, only the sound of metal against earth and the shared understanding that stopping is not an option. Among them, Sunlen remains quiet, focused. She speaks little, seeks no attention. Her strength reveals itself only through persistence, through continuing when her body begs for rest. At times, she pauses, straightens her back, wipes sweat from her brow, and looks toward distant mountains. Layers of peaks fade into mist, stretching endlessly toward the horizon, reminding her of the road ahead, long, uncertain, without promise. There are no miracles waiting, no sudden change, only repeating days and fragile hopes protected like embers in wind. As afternoon fades, shadows stretch across the fields. The women gather the final harvest. Sunlen's shoulders ache, her legs heavy, her hands trembling from exhaustion. When work ends, wages are pressed into her palm, a small amount, barely enough for simple meals. To Sunlen, this money is priceless, honest money earned through sweat, pain, and dignity. She closes her fingers tightly around it, as if holding tomorrow itself. She understands, no matter how harsh life becomes, as long as she stands, her daughter will not be alone. There will be food, a place to sleep, and a future worth believing in. As evening approaches, Sunlen walks home. The mountains grow quiet, the air cools. Somewhere ahead, her daughter waits, listening for familiar footsteps, waiting for reassurance that tomorrow they will survive again. In the silent mountains of the northwest, the small figure of Sunlen continues forward day after day, step after step, like a wildflower growing between rocks, unnoticed by many, yet unbreakable beneath a vast, indifferent sky. The path home is narrow, winding along slopes carved by rain and time. Each step reminds her of the weight she carries, not only on her back, but within her chest. Responsibility presses quietly, without complaint. She walks steadily because she must, because turning back is never an option. As she moves, memories surface of nights spent hungry, of fear she learned to hide, of promises whispered to her child in the dark. She remembers telling her that life can be hard, yet still meaningful, that pain does not erase kindness, that endurance itself is a form of courage. Sunlen does not dream of wealth or comfort. Her hopes are simple, measured in meals, school books, warm clothing, and safety. She dreams that her daughter will grow without fear of hunger, that her hands will hold pencils, not farming tools, that her future will offer choice instead of survival. The mountains watch silently as they always have, witnessing generations struggle, endure, and pass on strength. Through them, Sunlen walks, carrying both the burden of the present and the fragile seed of tomorrow, trusting that even in harsh soil, something living can still grow. Night will come, as it always does, bringing cold stars and quiet fires. Sunlen will cook a simple meal, listen to her daughter speak of school, and rest her tired body briefly before dawn returns. This cycle defines her life, yet within it lives unwavering resolve, a mother love stronger than hardship, stronger than silence, stronger than fate itself. It is this quiet, uncelebrated strength that carries Sunlen forward, transforming ordinary survival into a story of human resilience, written slowly across time, and remembered wherever compassion, patience, and perseverance still matter in this fragile world.
Elsewhere, far from the quiet path Sunlen is walking, another story begins to unfold. Apao, the man who once allowed Sunlen and her daughter to rent a small corner of his garden to survive, returns today to that very place. He comes not out of habit, but to visit the new tenants he has recently allowed to stay, to see whether they are taking care of the land he once treasured. He walks slowly around the garden, his eyes scanning every corner. What he sees makes his heart sink. Trash is scattered carelessly. The ground is littered with waste. Nothing is kept clean. Nothing is respected. Apao stands there in silence, and an uncomfortable thought rises in his mind. Before, when Sunlen and her child lived here, the garden had been different. It had been simple, poor, but clean. They swept the ground. They kept the soil neat. They treated the land as if it were their own. But they could not afford the rent. Because they could not pay, Apao had forced them to leave. He had closed his heart and told himself it was only business. Yet now, standing in the mess left behind by the new tenants, regret tightens in his chest. Only now does he truly feel it, the weight of guilt, the sharpness of a decision he cannot undo. As he stands there, lost in thought, the fragile peace of the afternoon is suddenly broken. Apao arrives at Apao's home. He is a man worn by life. His face is hardened by hardship. On his back is an old, faded backpack, its seams fraying with age. His steps are hesitant, but his eyes carry determination. Apao asks a single question. "Do you know a woman named Sunlen?" Apao looks at him, surprised. He hesitates for a moment, then answers honestly. He tells Apao that Sunlen and her daughter once lived in his garden. He tells him that he no longer rents the land to them, and he tells him the truth he now regrets, that he does not know where the mother and child are living anymore. Seeing the urgency in Apao's eyes, Apao reaches into his pocket and pulls out his phone. The screen is cracked, the glass is broken, yet on it is a clear image of Sunlen. He holds the phone out, showing the picture to Apao, hoping it might help him recognize her if their paths cross, hoping it might lead him to her somehow. Apao looks at the image carefully. He commits her face to memory. He is searching for her, not to demand money, not to threaten, not to harm. He is searching to fulfill a promise born of regret, a promise that has followed him across long roads and restless nights. But Apao is not the only one looking for Sun Luyen. Elsewhere in the village, two unfamiliar men move quietly from place to place. Their appearances are rough, their eyes are sharp and cold. They do not ask gently, they do not explain themselves. They are ghosts of the past, men who represent unpaid debts, unfinished business, and dangers Sun Luyen believed she had escaped. They are searching for her. Their presence hangs over the village like a dark shadow, creeping closer with every step, threatening to collide with the fragile life Sun Luyen is struggling to protect. Unaware of the forces now closing in from different directions, Sun Luyen continues her quiet journey, carrying hope in her hands and danger just beyond her sight.
On her way home from work, Song Lian walks along a narrow path filled with sunlight, her steps slow but steady as she heads back to her daughter. On the opposite side, Apao is still searching. Suddenly, he stops. Ahead of him, a lone woman walks quietly. Her figure, her posture, it matches the image in his memory. His heart tightens. Apao quickly hides near the roadside and watches. As she comes closer, there is no doubt. It is Song Lian. He wonders why she denied her name when they met before. Then he understands. Perhaps she carries a pain too heavy to speak. Apao remains hidden, choosing silence over approach. On the narrow mountain path ahead, danger has been waiting. Two unfamiliar men, hired debt collectors, stand by the roadside, watching quietly. When they see Sun Luyen approaching, their eyes lock onto her. Without warning, they step forward, blocking her way, their voices harsh and threatening. They demand payment. They warn that if she refuses, they will take her by force. Sensing the danger, Sun Luyen's face drains of color. She turns and runs. Fear drives her legs as she flees down the dirt path, the bamboo basket on her back bouncing wildly. Behind her, the two men give chase, their footsteps pounding against the ground, their shouts cutting through the quiet of the mountains. The pursuit becomes breathless. Branches scrape her arms, stones slip beneath her feet. Her lungs burn, but she does not stop. Every thought in her mind is of one thing only, her daughter. Just then, Apao appears. Though he has met Sun Luyen only once, something deeper than reason moves him. Without hesitation, he steps forward and blocks the path, placing himself directly between Sun Luyen and the men chasing her. "Stop," he shouts. The two men slow, surprised, then sneer. They threaten Apao, warning him not to interfere, telling him this is none of his business. But Apao does not move. He stands firm and tells them that if they take one more step, he will call the police and report everything. His voice is steady, unshaken, even as tension thickens the air. The men hesitate. Their aggression softens into unease. Finally, they speak. They explain that someone hired them to collect a debt. Long ago, a woman named Hua, a friend of Sun Luyen, borrowed money from their employer and disappeared. Unable to find her, they turned their attention to Sun Luyen instead, hoping to force payment from her. Hearing this, Sun Luyen shakes her head desperately. She pleads with Apao not to get involved. She insists the debt is not hers. But Apao has already made his decision. Without hesitation, he reaches into his bag and takes out a sum of money. It is not a small amount. It is money he likely needs himself, yet he places it firmly into the men's hands. He tells them clearly, "Take the money and never come back. Never threaten Sung Luyen again. Never look for her over this debt. The two men exchange glances. They accept the money, nod reluctantly, and turn away, disappearing down the path. Silence returns to the mountains. Sung Luyen stands trembling, tears welling in her eyes. The danger has passed, but the echo of fear lingers in the air, along with the quiet weight of a sacrifice she will never forget.
After the debt collectors disappear down the mountain path, silence slowly returns to the mountains. Sung Luyen remains standing where she is, her body still trembling, her breath shallow and uneven. Only now does the weight of what just happened truly settle into her chest. She turns toward Apao, her eyes filled with shock, relief, and overwhelming gratitude. She bows her head slightly, her voice breaking as she thanks him again and again. She tells him she does not know how she can ever repay what he has done, not only for stepping in to protect her, but for giving up his own hard-earned money to remove the danger that threatened her life. Tears gather in her eyes as guilt begins to surface. She apologizes for what happened before. She explains that when they first met, she denied her own name. At that time, fear ruled every decision she made. She had been running for too long, hiding from too many shadows. In that moment, she truly believed Apao might be someone dangerous, someone she could not trust. Apao listens in silence. He does not interrupt her. He does not show anger or disappointment. When she finishes, he gently shakes his head and tells her there is nothing she needs to apologize for. He understands fear. He understands how hardship teaches people to guard themselves, even when it means pushing others away. Then, calmly, he explains his reason for searching for her. He tells Sung Luyen that someone asked him to find her, and once he accepted that request, he felt responsible for seeing it through. He makes it clear that he never had any harmful intentions. He only wanted to meet her, to speak honestly, and to fulfill a promise that had been weighing on him for a long time. They stand by the roadside for a while, speaking quietly. The fear between them slowly dissolves. They talk about survival, about long journeys and heavy burdens, about how life can corner people until silence feels safer than truth. With every exchanged word, trust begins to grow. Sung Luyen feels her tension ease for the first time that day. The tightness in her chest loosens, replaced by a cautious sense of relief. After a brief hesitation, she gathers her courage and looks at Apao. She invites him to come with her to the small shelter where she and her daughter are staying. She says she wants to thank him properly, not with hurried words spoken in fear, but with sincerity, warmth, and whatever little she can offer. Apao pauses, then nods quietly. Together, they turn and walk along the narrow path, side by side. The sun lowers toward the mountains, casting long shadows ahead of them. Around them, the forest grows calm once more, as if acknowledging a fragile bond formed through courage, honesty, and compassion, a bond that may change the course of both their lives.
They arrive at Sung Luyen's temporary shelter as evening settles fully over the mountains. The place is simple and poor. There are no chairs, no table, no comforts one might expect. Instead, a few flat stones near the entrance become their seats. The shelter, built from gathered wood and leaves, stands fragile against the night, yet carefully arranged, carrying the quiet dignity of someone who refuses to give up. Apao slowly looks around. Everything is peaceful. The forest is still, the wind moves gently through the trees, and yet, within that calm, Apao feels a quiet ache. It pains him to imagine Sung Luyen living here alone, raising her child in such a remote and lonely place, far from protection, far from certainty.
They sit beside a small fire burning steadily. The flames crackle softly, pushing back the cold mountain air. Warm light dances across their faces, creating a rare moment of safety after a day filled with fear and tension. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. Then, Apao breaks the silence. He tells Sung Liuyan that someone asked him to find her, not to cause trouble, but to help her. Hearing this, Sung Liuyan's eyes brighten slightly. Hope flickers in her expression. She asks carefully if it was James who sent him. Apao shakes his head. "No," he says quietly, "it wasn't James." He pauses, choosing his words, then continues. "It was Sung Cham." He explains that Sung Cham, the woman who once burned Sung Liuyan's house, is now in prison, paying the price for her actions. From behind bars, burdened by regret, she asked Apao to search for Sung Liuyan. She wanted to find a way to make amends for the damage she caused. More than anything, she hoped Sung Liuyan could forgive her. The firelight flickers as Sung Liuyan listens. Her face shows no anger, no resentment, only calm reflection. After a moment, she speaks gently. She says the incident happened 2 years ago. Time has passed, and with time, her pain has faded. She no longer carries hatred in her heart. She has already forgiven Sung Cham. She adds that she hopes Sung Cham will serve her sentence, learn from her mistakes, and one day return to society to start over. Because in life, she believes, no one lives without making mistakes. What truly matters is realizing those mistakes, taking responsibility, and choosing to change. Apao lowers his head, deeply moved by her words. The fire continues to burn, warming the cold night and lighting their quiet faces. In that small shelter, forgiveness becomes something real, not spoken loudly, but lived. As darkness fully embraces the mountains, this moment becomes more than a simple conversation. It becomes a reminder of the true value of life: compassion over hatred, resilience over despair, and forgiveness over revenge. And if stories like this touch your heart, stories of hardship, courage, and humanity, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support allows these human stories to continue, reaching further and giving hope to those who need it most.